Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. We're ready to kick this one off. I'm about a minute late, man. I was sitting here most of the morning watching Michigan football, thinking about Michigan football. And then some late news with the transfer portal was popping, both for football and basketball. So if you don't know about that, we'll be getting to that.
That's my sticker.
Immediately. I don't know why I got some Tom Izzo in there, but we'll be getting to that immediately. We have some running backs to talk about today, Michigan style, and we'll look at Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. I was looking at running backs across the country, looking at running backs in the Big Ten, looking at duos and, ranking, because I was thinking, can I rank Blake Corum as the best running back in the country? I thought about that, and that was a real easy one. I said, yeah, I can do that. And I thought, can I rank Donovan Edwards as the second best running back in the country? And I'm thinking, wow, man, this is a real Michigan heavy list here. So I had to put some other players in there, but, we're going to look through that, just how good Corum and Edwards can be, all of that. But we'll start with this breaking news with a football player and a basketball player both hitting the portal. There it is. Breaking news. We've got breaking news, and here it is. You've got, on the basketball side, Greg Glenn III, the 6'7" freshman out of Pompano, Florida. He has entered the transfer portal. That opens up 2 scholarships now for Michigan, and so that's a positive for the Wolverines. Good luck to Greg Glenn. He didn't get much time this year. He burned that red shirt, and you just wondered, where his future was in Ann Arbor if he couldn't get out on the floor. And the answer to that is it's somewhere else. So open scholarship, exciting time for Michigan, who now has 2 scholarships to play with. So we'll see what Juwan Howard is able to do with that. Now over to the football side, there you can see it. You have A.J. Henning. I put a picture he put up on Twitter saying that he will, being a Michigan man has taught me things far beyond the football field, and I will carry that with me for life. And then he says he is in the transfer portal. I really like A.J. Henning as a football player. I don't follow all Michigan players on like all social media platforms, but I follow Henning on a couple. Hey, he's got a pretty good personality. Good luck to AJ. I was surprised that Michigan didn't have him out on the field more last year as a wide receiver. He was pretty much a punt return specialist and a good one, all Big Ten, but second team for AJ Henning, one of the better return men in the game. You thought that he could get a little bit more time out on the field, get some more end arounds, work him out of the backfield, which I think they just did one time. Like he was going to be Michigan's Deebo Samuel, the kind of slashed player for San Francisco that never materialized. Now, I don't think AJ, there have been some times where the ball was thrown to him and it went through his hands and he had a target or he dropped it. Not every time. Maybe that happened a little bit more in practice. Maybe that's why he wasn't out there with the wide receivers more. It became a predictable thing if he was out there, thinking that they were not going to throw him the ball. He was only going to be involved, which, it takes the intrigue and certainly masks, if you're trying to have everything look the same and have different guys, if you're trying to, hide some things offensively, maybe that tipped their hand on what they were going to be doing out there. I don't know, but Michigan had such a good year last year. They were perfect. Any decisions that they made, we've gone back to this. Well, why didn't they throw the ball more? Why didn't they put Henning in a running back role? Why didn't they? Well, they didn't do a few things that I thought that they would do, and they rang the bell every time, and they went undefeated, and they beat Ohio State, and they won the Big Ten. So, it's not even being criticized. It's just, you say, hey, you thought maybe they would do. There's only so many plays, and good luck to Henning. Now, he was a fabulous special teams player, specifically punt return player. So it does bring out the question immediately on who would replace Henning as Michigan's punt returner. I just went off the top of my head. I put all three of the wide receivers since Amarian Walker has moved over to corner. Maybe they just want him concentrating on, being cornerback too and not being a return guy, but maybe he's got the hands and maybe he's that cone drill that he had, the fabulous cone drill. When you think about being a punt returner, the number one thing you got to do is be able to catch the ball. So you got to have great hands. And you start out at wide receiver. Walker, does he have great hands? And then you're talking about a great speed and great moves and instincts, as a punt returner, making great decisions. There's a lot of things that go into, that you think about being a great punt returner. I think I've just gone over all of them. But Walker's pretty quick in a phone booth and also some straightaway speed, all of that. So I wouldn't discount him. Same thing with Morris, a little bit smaller. He fits the prototype when you think about it. Like a little bit like AJ Henning. But I could see Morris being able to do it. Darius Clemens, I think I'll have to go back. There was late in the spring game, there were some guys getting some burn back there, fielding some punts. I think Clemens was one. I think Zeke Berry was the other. But, I didn't write that down, and I actually haven't seen that anywhere. I was just going off of memory. But these are the guys that I picked. Now, there's 4 of them. There might be 8 guys that would be in consideration right now. We could probably put another 4. So if you had somebody in mind, you're thinking, hey, what about whoever, Cole Cabana? You'd say, yeah, okay, maybe. Like, your guess is almost as good as mine. I say almost, you got a pretty good guess. Let's see where people are at with the breaking news of today. Always great to see Jason, who starts things off, and wishing everybody a fine day. Same thing with Antoine doing that. Same thing with account 22, giving a thumbs up. And let's see. Here is Mark indicating that he thinks Roman Wilson would be the number 1 punt return guy. He is on kick returns. Blake Corum was on kick returns. Corum or Edwards or who? Second deep on kickoffs. Yeah, well, you could put, like I am one that doesn't shy away from using your top players on your team in key positions on special teams, specifically punt return and kick return. I do recall that Blake Corum 2 years ago against Western in the opener, he took a 79-yarder. He didn't score for a kick return, and Roman Wilson has been back there, and he's got great speed. So, those guys as kick returners, and maybe that's where somebody like Cole Cabana does figure in with the great speed that he has, and so any of those guys. And then for punt returners, I don't know about Roman Wilson. Sure, I think he's the fastest guy on the team. He is a wide receiver. He's got hands. We've seen the moves off the line of scrimmage. So Mark, you might be right. It could be Roman Wilson sitting in there right there. Mark also adding CJ Stokes on as a kick returner. Could be. It could happen. Antoine is talking about things that he's done other than on this show, like trolling other shows, which is something that's clogs our particular show. But hey, not every show reads all the feedback. It just cuts down on me having to sift through it. It makes it a little bit more difficult. But if you're entertaining the folks, Antoine, what can I say, man? Have at it. Mark is talking about the Old Miss running back and another running back ranked the second and third as fastest in the NCAA. Okay, well, we're talking running backs today, so that fits in. Here is the aforementioned Antoine who's saying, yes, Blake is the best running back in the country, but if you are looking at the dumb rankings, he's ranked a 3 or low 4 stars, but who would believe that? Well, the thing you got to remember, I mean, if I'm not saying that you're taking it to extreme, Antoine, but when it comes down to recruiting rankings, it is fun to go back and say, hey, the guy was just a 4-star or whatever it was. As soon as you rank somebody and they play a game, the rankings change. The rankings are fluid. So once things happen as you are a freshman, if we were going back now and we were changing the rankings from to be the 20 when Blake Corum was a freshman, Blake Corum would move into 5-star recruiting status. That's the way they do it. I always hear every time signing day, it's like, well, we're just going to have to wait 3 or 4 years, which is true. Changing it as you go. Mason Graham, he is a 5-star in my mind now, in my eyes. He wasn't coming out of college. Kenneth Grant he is a 5-star right now. I don't know about the other defensive tackles that were in there, and I'm sure their rankings, but it is a fluid situation. It changes as we go. I've said it twice there, but it is fun to go back and say, oh, the rating. Yeah, the rankings are the rankings. It's a guide. It is for fun. I'll give you this, Antoine. We're going to come up on Thursday, and it's going to be the first round of the NFL draft. Guess what? Half of those first-round picks will be busts. They certainly won't, and 2/3 of them won't live up to being a first-round selection. And that's what will happen. In 2 or 3 years, you'll look back and say, wow, that guy was a first-rounder? Well, it's more of a guide for fans and for those teams being able to pick them. It goes to show eye for talent. I saw people, I don't know, where they complained. There was a poster. And, not every poster is making great points all the time. And a guy that was posting and saying, why is Michigan going after some 3-star or something he was saying? And it's kind of like, if the Michigan coaching staff as a group, they put their evaluation in on a guy, and the position group and whoever their guy is recruiting, and then sure, they will look across the country at all the different, they're not ignoring, rivals and everyone else. They'll put that in a group and they'll take a look at it, and then they'll have their own evaluations. But if they're sitting over there thinking, man, we really like this kid. We think this kid's one of the best guys in the country. And somebody says, Rivals doesn't like him. They think he's like, top 150, and they think he's 110. You know what they're going to do? They're going to say, the hell with Rivals. We're going to go with our evaluation. And that's what happens. There'll be surprises on Thursday on the NFL draft. We've got 1 million mock drafts. We've got 1 million people, even guys that worked in the NFL as personnel folks. They'll miss on 3 or 4 guys. And some guy out of the blue will be taken at I won't say number 6. That's what the Lions are picking. They get taken at number 7, and people will be like, that's a reach. Well, we'll see. Sometimes you do reach, but we can complain. The coach says he understands why Henning is leaving. He's underutilized. Well, I'm sure in his mind he is, and I get what you're saying. But if you are tipping Michigan's hand that they're going to be running the ball, if you can't catch the ball, if other wide receivers that you put out there, Antoine, here's what I'm saying. If you put Tyler Morris through 5 practices and Tyler Morris catches all 100 balls that were thrown his way, and you throw 100 to Henning and he drops 20 of them, are you going to be like, well, let's put Henning out there? No, you're not. And even though Henning's really good with the ball in his hands, it was, I don't want to say it was frustrating. It was curious why he wasn't out there more. And again, if Michigan would have dropped a couple games, he would have been one of the guys like, why weren't they using him more? Why weren't they, like you like to say, throwing the ball more or utilizing more route trees or something? But they won. So what they're doing is they're doing a pretty good job out there. Shadyville wondering he's not sure how missed he'll be. I think he'll be missed in the return game, and he'll be missed on TikTok. He's one of the best returners to ever play at Michigan. He's an exceptional returner. He's a real weapon. He's a real game breaker when it comes to special teams. He got passed up as a wide receiver. I'm not in all of those practices. If we're just going on some of the game film, I saw him drop some passes, but I think Michigan, they don't want to put guys out there that is going to send up red flags like, oh, they're just running it. You might say they're running 75% of the time anyways. I get that. I don't blame them either. They didn't use him enough. But I'm not going to put him out there just to put him out there. That's the thing. Shadyville, the offense has never been creative enough to use a Henning-type player. Yeah, well, I don't know how creative Shadyville, like, and here's me sounding like I'm going to defend Michigan again. Right now, I am going to defend Michigan. Was it creative? Did you like the creativity of the Philly special in the semifinals, Shadyville? Was that creative enough for you? Because people they didn't like the creativity there. Did you like the creativity in the Ohio State game where flipping Khalil Mullins threw a that blind fourth down pass, up in the air as a linebacker move over? That was as creative as any player ever. Very creative. Did you like the creativity of the Big Ten title game in 21 where they had Donovan Edwards throwing a transcontinental for a touchdown to Roman Wilson? You didn't like that creativity? Not creative enough for you? Did you like it on that one kick return against Maryland, I think, which I believe A.J. Henning was involved with, where they threw the ball back to him, and he ended up taking off down the field? Very creative. So this part about the offense has never been creative enough to use a Henning-type player, I completely disagree with. Now, you want to do a bunch of jet sweeps, and you think that's creative. When I watch football, and I watch a team that is losing or a team that is getting beat, and they run jet sweeps, their fan base all freak out. Why are we running so many jet sweeps? It's totally predictable. That's not creative. A.J. Henning, what did you want to do? Put him out there, throw him some more smoke screens? Michigan doesn't like throwing the smoke screens with this staff. They don't throw a lot of screens. So the way they want to play football, you can say, well, that's not creative enough for me. Well, all right. But I don't agree that that Michigan is not creative enough. I think they got too creative in the semifinal game. But I think they're pretty creative. I thought it was pretty creative of Jim Harbaugh last year to go into the season and have a battle royale between his two quarterbacks in the first two games. That was just last year. That was more creative than I've ever seen any coach in college football be since Steve Spurrier was running his Gators out there in the same series, play by play. One guy would throw, he'd bring the next guy out and have him come in. You can say, oh, it's a little stupid. I think you might be right about that. But this is what a fan says that's just not true. The offense has never been creative enough. And if it is, I'll take an undefeated season with a lack of creativity with a bunch of, you've got no leg to stand on here, Shadyville. Take it back. All right. I think a lot of people say that. That's why Giles Jackson also transferred. Shadyville doubling down on Michigan's lack of creativity. Let's go to AJ on the feedback. The killing part about it is you don't have to be creative to get the ball in his hands. Yeah, I don't blame Michigan for having the season that they had. It What they did worked. They win. You guys are looking back. You could have put AJ Henning in there, and it could have cost them some games. In the final result, like if Michigan would have, do you think that they would have won? Now this is it. Do you think that having AJ Henning in at wide receiver and being creative with him, Michigan would have won against TCU? Because every other game they smashed their opponent and they won. They were undefeated. They were 13-0. So they win when it comes down to it. Wide receiver development has to prove ASAP. I think there is some truth to that. And some people would say, well, Michigan just runs the ball too much. So there were a number of plays, Venice, that I would look at from going back into the season. Like there's this thing like Michigan can't throw the ball. They won't throw the ball. They're not creative enough to throw the ball. Their wide receivers haven't developed enough. I just go back and I think about what I did see where Michigan was opening up full throttle. They had to against TCU. And I know that he threw 2 pick sixes, but if you go back to the Ohio State game, Michigan's downfield passing game opened up. They broke the seal. McCarthy was great throwing the ball down the field against Ohio State. He was really good against Purdue. He played almost a perfect game. Threw 1 interception down the field, too much time against Purdue. And then he was whipping it all around the yard in that amazing 51-45 shootout with all those mistakes. My point is that it developed. You're talking about developing the wide receivers. The chemistry and the marriage of the route running and the actual execution of being able to get the ball down the field, it was being worked on. I think about that Rutgers game where, he missed Amarian Walker. Walker could have had it. It kind of went through his hands. He was down the middle. Who was that was over there? Kojo. I don't know. He could have made that. I don't know who that was on the quarterback, if that was on the receiver when you're coming down, but you had an experienced wide receiver with a sophomore quarterback. I go to the Illinois game. What was my man who transferred? Andrell Anthony. The downfield passing game would have been working fine, and the creativity and everything else. Amarian Walker was standing there at the 1 yard line. JJ McCarthy threw a good pass. You could have been sitting in there with Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and those guys would have said, that's a hell of a pass. That's right down to the 1. That's what you want to do with your McCarthy. And Walker, I'm sorry, Anthony couldn't catch it. Right between 2 guys, put it right on him. Maybe that's development with the wide receiver. That's catching the football. 101. Hit him right in the hands. And it wasn't like he was over here like this and hit him right in the hands. Go back and watch the tape. My point is the passing game, they left some yards out there. They left some touchdowns out there. Remember when during I think it was the Iowa game, 3 other games, McCarthy, everybody's like, oh, we love McCarthy and everything else, except if he could hit those downfield passes more. He missed Roman Wilson at least twice, maybe 3 times, where Roman Wilson was running free behind the defense. And if he lays the ball in there, it's going to be a touchdown. But he wasn't able to do it. And McCarthy said, I got to put the ball on him, which he was right about. And then he talked about, not having the spring and the chemistry there. But he got it against Ohio State. My point is that I think Michigan's passing game that people lament, I think is here. And I think is ready to go from game 1. I'm expecting more shots completed and a more of a downfield passing game connecting like it did in the last 3 games. I'm not expecting McCarthy to miss guys by 5 yards when they're running free down the field. It took them some time there, but the seal is broken. I think they're on the same page there. Now, you can say the wide receivers could help them. I'm fine with that. But I think you'll find that Roman Wilson will be connecting with McCarthy on big time plays down the field this year. I also think you could see that from Cornelius Johnson, which we saw late in the season, which I would expect to happen. I would also expect Colston Loveland to be a lot better after a year under his belt. I would expect him to be a matchup problem down the field in the passing game. I would expect his route running to develop after being a true freshman. Those are Michigan's top 3 guys. All 3 of those guys can make plays down the field. It just didn't happen until late in the season because we all saw it. McCarthy was not on the same page with his receivers. Sometimes it was McCarthy, sometimes it was his receivers. Now they are on the same page. And it happened in the biggest games for Michigan. So some of this stuff, you're taking all of the games and you're smashing it all in together. I'm not so sure that the wide receiver development has to improve. I think Roman Wilson is fine. I think Cornelius Johnson, sure, he's got to be more consistent. But what do we always say about a senior player that's coming back? You would expect Cornelius Johnson to have the best season. And that doesn't sound crazy at all. I would expect Cornelius Johnson to have his best season at Michigan that he's had being a senior and everything. And if he's that, he's going to be pretty good. I think Loveland could be a future All-American. I think Roman Wilson is underrated. So Venice, not just signaling out you, I'll single out a number of you. You know, Ibukwe and Marvin Harrison Jr. are the 2 best wide receivers in the country. You know, they happen to play for Ohio State. So if you're comparing Ohio State's wide receivers to Michigan's wide receivers, well, then there's a little bit of a gap there. There's a gap with every team in the country when it comes down to what Ohio State is putting out as their wide receivers. I think Michigan's wide receivers are fine. I do think that when you're talking about development, I think that Clemens or Tyler Morris, I think one of those 2 guys that we will be surprised at them getting on the field and being effective wideouts. Morris caught that big 3rd down against Illinois. Clemens, he looks like he's an all Big Ten performer just waiting to happen. You just got to give him the targets. Now, there's only so many targets to go around. And the 3 top guys, Kojo, Roman Wilson, and Colston Loveland, those 3 guys, I think are good enough to win the Big Ten. I think those 3 guys are good enough to win a national championship. So you could talk about ASAP needing to develop the wide receivers. I think that they have good enough pass catchers to win the national championship. Let's go to Victor. McDoom, Giles Jackson, now A.J. Henning. Michigan can never really find a solid enough role for these guys to stick around. I know Giles Jackson seemed like he was in the mix. Where did McDoom go? Like, you know, there's also, you know, if we're sure they came in, they thought they were going to be a little bit better. Was Jackson, you know, some killer at Washington? I don't know. Had some guys doing some end arounds. Mark really high on C.J. Stokes as a returner. Shadyville coming back saying he hopes the next punt returner can keep the ball from hitting the ground. It bothers me how often the ball hits the ground. It doesn't bother me. I thought Henning did a good job. You know, however you're coached and what you go through with that, there's a lot of hidden yardage. I'll buy that, Shadyville. But the one thing you want is a guy that is in position to be able to field the ball. Now you got to be able to get in position. You got guys all around you. You got to be able to zero in and field the ball. You got to be able to secure it. It's number one, being able to do that. You got a ball that's skipping down there from some rugby punter who side asses it off the, his foot, and it's coming down, awkwardly over here. And, sometimes the call is, let's get away from it. So you can't pick up all those. I thought Henning picked up a few more than actually, not that I would say that I was comfortable with, but that you might, that I think everybody, if we were watching it, said, freeze it. Do we want to be fielding this one? And I think the majority of us would have been saying, no, you got to let that one go. It's got too much, it's too hot, too much going on the block. And, Henning fielded it. I thought he did a good job. So, Shadyville, we're not on the same page today. Okay, let's take, I guess I could sit here all day long. I got all this on running backs, just talking about A.J. Henning and Michigan's wide receivers. We'll take two more. One from the coach. I'm tripping when I say implement more slants. That's why Michigan is having a hard time recruiting receivers now, because they don't do simple, easy plays to get the ball, the wide receiver, in his hands. Yeah, I don't know if you're tripping. I think you're tripping when you talk about, so you want easy routes and complicated routes for the wide receivers, because you say you want more route trees, and Michigan needs to do more complicated route trees, but you also want them to do the simple things. You want the ball in the receiver's hands more. Michigan is deciding to run a little bit more. Antoine, here's the news for you. Michigan wants to be able to do both. And if I think you think about the last three games and what you saw with the downfield passing game, I think that's the Michigan that you're going to see this year. They want to throw bombs and take the top off the defense. Now, why don't they throw more slants or jump balls? That's my own one that I wonder about down in the end zone. Well, like we go back over it. You talk about the personnel, that's with the receiver, that is also with the quarterback. You also talk about the staff and what they think about those particular plays. Why didn't they throw more screens? Why didn't they throw more slants? Why didn't they throw more jump balls? Well, Harbaugh might be sitting over there, I was going to say smoking a cigar, but he might just be sitting over there saying, hey, you guys, what the hell are you guys going to do when we lose a ball game? We win a ball, and you're over here complaining about our deployments of our receivers. Okay, couple more here. Victor says Clemens and Walker are too big for punt return. DPJ was large for that position. They are bigger. Quickness in small space is a necessity, which usually favors the smaller guys. Yeah, I'm not agreeing with that. Let me think about it. Tim Brown was an outstanding punt returner for Notre Dame. How tall was Tim Brown? Seems like he's a pretty good guy, pretty big guy. There was a corner that played for Florida State and also ended up, getting picked by the Atlanta Falcons. He had a spring game. He was wearing a big cowboy hat on Saturday. His name was Dion. How tall do you think Dion is? He's the best punt returner I've ever seen. You're thinking about the Rocket and, Desmond Howard. Yeah. Some of the smaller guys. Again, I don't care how big my punt returner is. You got to be able to have great hands, and you have to be able to focus on being able to catch the ball while there's a lot going on around you. That's going to be the most important thing. You got to make great decisions when that ball is coming at you, skidding on the turf. You'll have somebody like Shadyville saying, field it every time. He doesn't like the ball bouncing around because he doesn't like that yardage when it goes, squirting past him, down towards the end zone. You got to make the smartest decision. You need a smart guy with great hands. Those are the first two things you need. And somebody like you could stand there all day long on a free throw line shooting free throws, but when you get into the game and everybody's watching, there's some guys can't make a free throw. Ben Wallace comes to mind that way. So if I got a Darius Clemens I'll take a 6'1" guy that can secure the ball every time and make great decisions over your 5'10" little quick guy every time. Hands is what you want. Doesn't matter how tall you are. Andre says, if I don't have Blake as the great, Blake the great at number 1, then I am higher than the FPI. Let's see. We better get to that, huh? I'm going to be sitting around here all day. One more. Henning wasn't an All-American per se. I trust the coaches on this one. They see someone that's better and more potential than AJ. I wish them all the best. Scott, I love this point. Caden Colasar is an ace. When he got hurt and the long snapper got hurt, I thought that was bad news for Michigan. I might not have said it. I was, tough loss. But I wasn't sitting here like, oh my, that was a huge loss. Special teams aces are worth their weight in gold. That's what I'm telling you. All right. For Richard, who's probably just joining us, the big news today, Michigan loses a pair to the portal. One in basketball. Greg Glenn III. Good luck to Glenn III. And then AJ Henning, one of my favorite Wolverines, and the transfer portal. He gone. Who's going to replace him? We'll see. Your guess is almost as good as mine. All right, so let's get to the running backs. I went over it. I probably could take 3 days and going with the best duo ever at Michigan, the best duo in the country, and then the best backs in all of the country, but I combined it all 3 today. So just by the yardage, if you look at the 14, I think that says 63 by Blake, and if you look at the 991 from the Don, it adds up to 2,454 and 25 TDs. That is the most single-season rushing yards of any backfield duo in Michigan history. Are they the best? Well, the good thing is not everything about getting old is great. Not everything. In fact, you could say everything sucks about, growing old, but there's some good things. One of them is that you have seen a lot of football. The older that you get, you've seen these guys. I was in the stadium to see Tyrone Wheatley. I remember when Biaka Batuka was a freshman, they put him in late in a game against Purdue, and it was like, who's that guy? They're pretty much the gold standard. But yeah, you could go back to the 70s and you could pick 2. You could go back to the early 80s. But Wheatley and Biaka Batuka, those guys, what a duo. Just, I guess we say 2 years ago now, because that was 21. Corum and Haskins. Corum was being used as much as Haskins in the early going in the 21 season. Against Washington, when they had the 56 carries and 343 yards, both of those guys were going. And when they played Northwestern, 2 touchdowns for both of them, 119 yards. But then Blake got hurt, and Hassan Haskins took over. And Hassan Haskins was awesome, scoring touchdowns. And they almost rang up 300 yards against Ohio State 2 years ago, and Haskins was great in that game. How many touchdowns did he have? 5, 169 yards. I mean, it's amazing. Corum was also in that game. He hit some big runs. That first one that he went on the first series that Michigan had in the third quarter, he was awesome on that one. My point is that was a really good backfield, and Blake was involved along with Hassan Haskins as 1-2. And then last year happened. Last year was pretty amazing for these guys. You think about them. I put both of their game logs up here that I can look at, but I would say just with production wise, if you're sitting out there, you're probably like me. I think this is one of those things we could all agree on. Like, I think these guys are the best two running backs in the country. So, yeah, I think they're the best duo ever at Michigan, which says a lot. But I also think they're the best duo in the country. I also think they're the top two running backs in the country. Now, that one sounds a little crazy. That sounds like a little maize and blue, home cooking. You're telling me out of every back in the country, you would rank Blake Corum number one and Donovan Edwards number two? And what I'm telling you is yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's how highly I think of these guys. I love the one arm bandit. And I don't know, I could spend an hour straight talking with you how much I like Blake Corum. Blake Corum getting back to 100%. The work ethic that he has, supposed to be cleared by June for everything. He's on track, even ahead of schedule. So, yeah, best duo in Michigan history. Let's see if anybody's weighing in on the backs, or are we still, talking about Michigan's personnel? And let's see. All right, look, Antoine's come around. Michigan is great. There you go. There you go, Antoine. Now you're talking. Let's we got Bailey who has entered the chat. And Bailey has thrown some breaking news my way that very well could have happened. And I'm just going to have to double check it. He is correct. RJ Moten. Oh, boy. RJ. Old RJ. Second transfer of the day has been confirmed. He joins Henning. Man, I really liked. Here's another guy that I really liked. I really liked RJ Moten. But Michigan has Makari Page, and they have Rod Moore. And then you start going over from Zeke Berry to Quentin Johnston, they're pretty stacked at safety. This is a hit. I liked Moten. I liked the chess piece that he was. That's a disappointment. It hurts their depth. Do I think Michigan's going to be okay? I do, but he's a hell of a football player. I liked him. I don't have anything to say negatively about Moten. I can't say every one of the guys are my favorite guys because I've already said that about AJ Henning. Well, he was one of my favorites. Moten, he was one of my favorites too. I liked RJ Moten, so that hurts. All right. Shane is saying it's not a surprise. He was about to get passed by Barry and Sab. And those are the thing that goes on. Now, Shane, you're right. And if you're somebody that sits around counting scholarships and you count Michigan's and you get to 85, you start going 86, 87, 88, 88. They're in the 90s. So somewhere there had to be some attrition. Henning and Moten for Michigan. Mark going back to the H-bomb and Russell Davis to the best combination. He goes for the NFL careers. It's a high bar. Oh, Russell Davis. The H-bomb, again, age helping me out here. Not that I watched the H-bomb, but it was just a little bit before my time. But being in the media for 25 years, I ran into Mr. Huckleby a few times. And what I can tell you about the H-bomb, Harlan Huckleby, is he's a great guy. He's a fun guy to be around. I'm a big fan of the H-bomb. Here's Ty. Bad news is traveling fast today. RJ Moten in the portal. That's it. it's too bad. Too bad. All right, let's get to some more of the running backs. I had to process Michigan's Moten going into the portals. I wish I had some buffs to put on in so I could honor him. I'll just say, best of luck, RJ. So yeah, best duo ever at Michigan. The H bomb putting him in there with Davis, that was a good one. How about this says Big Ten West? This should said Big Ten East as I put that over there because Michigan is actually, and so is Ohio State and Penn State in the Big Ten East. So that is my mistake. I'm the one. I'd like to be able to blame that on my producer or something, but I'm actually the producer. I'm actually the ones that type up and put these pictures in here. So that's my mistake. I do know that Michigan is in the Big Ten East. Look at the duo of running backs just in the Big Ten East. There's not another, you could look down at the SEC. You can look at any other conference in the Power Five. The Big Ten East has 3 pairs of running backs that I'll put up against anyone. On the top, I will put Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. But look at these guys. Travion Henderson is an outstanding back. I know he got hurt last year, but the year before that, I saw what I needed to see from Henderson. He's awesome. Michigann Williams stood in for Henderson last year, and he was really good. I mean, these guys are both Buckeyes. I don't know how they're going to get him the ball with all the talent that they have and everything else, but these guys are an outstanding duo. Not as good as Corum and Edwards, but hey, who is? Nobody. And that's where you get to Penn State's Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. These guys are amazing. If you look at the recruiting rankings for Ohio State and Penn State with these guys, they do outshine Michigan. But when you get to college and what you do on the field, and right now, all of these running backs are outstanding. It just shows you, and this is one when we're talking about narratives that are emerging for the college football season. I would say for Michigan and the Big Ten East is that the running backs that the top teams in the East have are unbelievable. Edwards, Corum, Henderson and Williams for Ohio State, Singleton and Allen for the Nittany Lions. One of these 3 teams is going to be the Big Ten winner. Michigan going for the 3-peat. But these teams are stacked at running back. I'm not belittling any of these guys. I've seen all of these backs, and they're all tremendous. So Michigan's run defense is going to have to be on point. Whoever's going to win the Big Ten is going to be the team that is best stopping the run. You agreeing with that? But I'll put Michigan as the best duo in the Big Ten East. I am also going to put them as the best duo in the country. Having said that, when you think about the country, I started just, this is more of a brainstorming. Excuse me, I don't want to sound like a frog. Some would say I already do. I just jotted some of the names down that I thought these guys, I haven't seen all of these guys, but a lot of them, I was looking at the depth charts. I was combing the internet. I was watching some film. And, Corum and Edwards, I have at 1-2. I want to see how crazy that is. There's a lot of great backs. Kendall Milton from Georgia. I've seen him. This kid from Ole Miss, Quinshawn Judkins, who was mentioned by Mark. He is, he's great. And I know what you're saying on Judkins. The Rocket from Arkansas, Raheem Sanders, Wisconsin. Michigan would be familiar with this guy. Michigan almost had Braylon Allen in the transfer portal coming to Michigan, but he headed back to Luke Fickell and the Badgers. Florida State, a lot of people are high, myself included. Trey Benson, a reason why. There's one of those Nittany Lions making the top 14 for me. Frank Gore's kid. I watched him in the bowl game. He had like 400 yards, not quite, but he was on his way to getting them. And then Shipley for Clemson. If you're saying, hey, what about so-and-so? So-and-so probably could make the list. I mean, I don't know how many deep I was going to go, but you could say, yeah, but this guy's, should be top 5. I went through it. I spent a lot of time. I spent my entire morning, looking through it and a lot of last night. But this was the brainstorming that I did thinking about the top backs. But then I went to a service that a lot of people go to that don't want to look through all the depth charts and all-American lists and all conference first, second, and third team or watching film like I was doing. And they just go to Pro Football Focus. And Pro Football Focus, they have a top 10 running back rankings in 23. And the reason that I like Pro Football Focus, not in everything, but when I looked at their running back rankings, I said, all right, well, who do they have at number 1? Blake Corum they had at number 1. Pro Football Focus's number 1 running back. Entering the season for 2023, they picked Blake Corum. They said Corum was arguably the best running back in college football last season, making him an easy choice for number 1 here. His 96.2 grade didn't just lead all players in the country. It was the best Pro Football Focus has ever seen from a Power 5 player. Now, they haven't been doing it all the way back when Herschel Walker was running or Bo Jackson, but, so what, it's been 10 years? I don't know. Maybe only 5, but, 5-10 years. But Corum is the best that they've ever seen from a Power 5 player. So I was like, I like the list. Corum's at number 1. Who else from PFF? Let's go through it. Mark will like this one because he was even early on talking about the Ole Miss running back, Judkins. And Pro Football Focus has the shifty running back from the Rebels at number 2. They say he was arguably the best newcomer in college football last year. He had a grade of 88.2, and that tied Michigan corner Will Johnson for first among Power 5 true freshmen. I figured putting that note up there with old Will Johnson being up there was pretty good. All right, here are the other rankings for Pro Football Focus. Running backs. Number 3, the Rocket, Sanders from Arkansas. Corum, Judkins, and the Rocket from Arkansas, 1, 2, 3, according to Pro Football Focus of returning running backs in college football for next season. On to number 4. And I got 4 and 5 for you here. Corum, Judkins, the Rocket from Arkansas, Bucky Irving from Oregon, and they put Braylon Allen, who was going to transfer to Michigan for a minute, at 5. So there are your top 5 running backs for next year, according to PFF. Where is the Don? At number 6, the aforementioned Trey Benson comes in at 6 from Florida State. If I sit around saying every one of these guys is outstanding, it's true, but a little bit redundant. They all are outstanding. At number 7, Nick Singleton from Penn State. Penn State's duo, tremendous. Pro Football Focus likes Nicholas Singleton as their 7th best back returning next year, which gets us to, stay with me, number 8. How about the Ohio State running back, not Travion Henderson, according to Pro Football Focus? They put Michigann Williams as the 8th best returning running back. Henderson got hurt a lot, or was hurt last year. Williams came in, handled the bulk of the load for the Buckeyes. And Williams, not Henderson, making the top 10 for Pro Football Focus and the returning players. Interesting. Which gets us to number 9. And there he is, the Don, Donovan Edwards. 9th best returning running back for 23, according to Pro Football Focus. I don't know which one of you on this show declared him to be the one-arm bandit, but it stuck with me. I love it. I know he's going to have both arms rolling, hopefully for this upcoming season, but I'll still always for the definitely for the Ohio State game, and how about the Big Ten title game as well? I'll put where he had 185 yards. I'll put the one-arm bandit in there. And so just quickly, I'll give you a 10 and I'll give you the entire list here. My whole thing about, I thought Blake was the best running back coming back in the country. And I've seen a lot of these guys. I watched Ole Miss once. I watch a lot of Arkansas. My family's from that. Of course, I've watched whiskey. Florida State, Penn State, Ohio State. I mean, I think Donovan Edwards can easily be in the top 5. And hey, if you're in the top 5, he could be number 2. I don't think it sounds like you sound like a Michigan homer. And I think you could say that about this, but I'm going to put Donovan Edwards at number 2. Top 10 running backs. This is the Fithian focus. Top 10 running backs for 23. Blake Corum 1. Donovan Edwards 2. That's it. You want to call me names? You want to call me a homer? I'll take it. That's where I'll put Donovan Edwards. Here's what PFS had to say about the Don. They said he was expected to become a breakout star this year, with Corum seemingly entering the draft. But now that Corum is returning, Edwards continues to be the best number 2 running back in the country. According to Fithian Focus, the second best overall running back in the country. They went on. The sophomore led all Power 5 running backs this past season with a 7.1 yards per carry. That's good. He got an 87 grade, tied for 5th in that same group. So he's a top 5 graded running back by Pro Football Focus. He had the best yards per carry in all of college football last year. All right. When Corum went down with a knee injury late in the season, Edwards stepped up when it mattered the most against Ohio State, Purdue in the Big Ten championship game, and TCU in the CFP playoff semifinal. He ran for a combined 520 yards and averaged 7.4 yards per carry. So when it mattered most, he averaged more than 7.1 per carry, which led all Power 5 running backs. When it mattered most, he averaged even more. The case for the one-arm bandit being made here today. What do you think? Let's see. Were people still talking about RJ Moten? And if you're just joining us, I'm aware. AJ Henning and RJ Moten in the transfer portal. News was happening fast and furious today, along with talking running backs. Harvey is on board. Let's see. Mark was saying Notre Dame was claiming. Notre Dame claims a lot. I think mostly when it comes down to Notre Dame, you pretty much discount things that they say. Andre's liking PFF a little bit better than the ESPN FBI. Pure Montana, we need a CB2. I think they're going to be okay there. And, Pure Montana, if Michigan really doesn't think that McBurrows can be a number 2, or if they don't think Amarian Walker or my guy, Miles Pollard, can step in there, then there is the transfer portal option. They will have looked at 14 other practices in addition to all of the work that they have seen behind the scenes prior to that. And if they really think that they can find an upgrade out there in the transfer portal, I think they'll do it. Mark saying he thinks Judkins is only a sophomore. You are correct. True freshman last year. Braylon Allen is not better than the Don. I know. I don't think so either. Ooh. Discard Pure Montana's instant feedback. For those listening on the podcast, I'm not even going to read it. Although, I might agree with it. Pure Montana thinks that Penn State, I will put this one up there. Penn State is going to be better than Ohio State this year. Andre's, my ranking system. Billy the Kid. I love the handle. Penn State gave over 400 yards to Michigan and didn't punt, so I say lay off the predictions. Yeah, 418 yards. And what was the Don? He led the Power 5 with 7-1 per carry, and then in the last 3 games went 7-4 a carry. Michigan averaged, with their 418 yards, they averaged 7.6 per carry against Penn State last year. And I love the name Billy the Kid. I'm a big Billy the Kid fan. Not necessarily like Wild West gunman or anything else, but I read a book a long time ago about Billy the Kid. And so then I searched out a few more. I've read a couple Billy the Kid books. So you being Billy the Kid, I like. You also, Billy the Kid, bringing up not only BTK, but also bringing up the Penn State game, which, I have locked and loaded sitting right here. Now, I didn't just go to the Donovan Edwards big run, Billy the Kid, because when I got to it, I thought, what really helps Michigan's running game? Think about it for yourself and then watch this play. This is what really helps Michigan's running game. There's a 3rd and 4 that Michigan is presented with in the second half of the Penn State Michigan game this year. Penn State got an opening series field goal to take the lead on Michigan 17-16. It was 16-14 at the half. On a 3rd and 4, JJ drops back the pass, but he just scampers for the first down. Nice and easy. Picks up the first down, gets escorted out of first down, move the chains for Michigan. Yeah, you like the offensive line, how they block here. Look at JJ. Looks left, looks to the middle, doesn't see anything there, but then sees it. Look at that, tucks it and run. You hope you see a lot of that. Boy, that just makes you, if you're a Michigan fan, that's what you want to see from McCarthy. You just want to see him picking up those easy first downs and not being touched as he goes out of bounds. What's this one? Uh-oh. Look at this, Penn State. Penn State had the 8th or top 5 rush defense heading into this game. They're only giving up 80 per contest. He almost ran for 80 just on that one. Michigan takes the lead, and they never look back. Now, Edwards is a great back. It also helps when you have an offensive line that can pull and get out in front of them, and they're athletic. And if you're watching, if you're listening to this, you'll have to just have a little theater of the mind. Michigan gets out. Ola Timmy gets out in front of everything on a pole, and they just give the Don, the one-armed bandit, a little crease, and he just takes off and outruns everyone. He's got great speed. Donovan Edwards has to be a 4-4 guy. I mean, he just is everything. Now, I wanted to leave this one in here, too, because it's a 2-point conversion. This is what happened. I'm like, I'll just put these 2 things in, and then next thing you know, I'm like, wow, I like that play. I like this one. Short yardage situation, and from the 2, Michigan's going to go for it on a 2-point conversion. Look how easy they make this. Look how easy. Pitch, catch, Ronnie Bell, 2-point conversion. Boom. Just like that. A thing of beauty. Now, I'm not going to run it all the way through. I've got one more that I want to show you, and it comes from the same game. I've got a 4th down play, and I've got Blake Corum's run. I just got to take me about 5 seconds to get there. It says right about, what about it? What about right about here? I think I got it. Oh, yeah, I do. Now, this is a nice play. This is Michigan on a fourth down play. This was the ball game right here. Actually, 4th and 6. Penn State goes for it. And they target Agent Zero, which I don't think is a great idea. But they run a pretty interesting route. It's not right down the sideline, but there's enough room in here. This guy could have made one of the great catches that you'll ever see. Agent Zero is right on top of him. Nice throw. It just doesn't come up with a catch. It would have been a great catch. That's weird because there's so much area over there on the sideline. I don't know if they practice it like that, if that's supposed to be down the hash and then thrown over like that. But, yeah, the Michigan fans like it. And now the Wolverines take over. You had the long run from Donovan Edwards, and oh, no. Look at this one. Blake Corum's, I think, got deceptive speed there. He looked pretty good pulling away. I don't know. Maybe Penn's either, I don't know which one is true. Either Blake Corum's a little bit faster than I think we think, or Penn State's defense is a little slower. I'm not sure which one it is. Maybe both. But if you watch this run, folks, this one goes for 61. Edwards went for 67. Penn State, these guys have the angle on him, and Corum, and then they're kind of right with him, and he just runs past these guys. I'm thinking that Blake Corum is, look at, I love the, they're giving him the, the we're not worthy, the praise. And, he deserves it. Let's be honest. Let's get a slow-mo, or I think we get an end zone cam of it here. Here you go. The Don is giving it to him. He's hot. Like, they're praise him. Not worthy. He's coming back. He's a hard worker, ahead of schedule, and is supposed to be able to be good to go by June 1st. It's the month out where this guy can be doing everything. Okay, here's the one. Is he faster, or is Penn State's defense slower? It's going to go kind of slow here. What a hole. But he hits it, and then, whoa, he can move laterally, and these guys are right on him. That isn't old, what's his name? It's going to be a first-round corner, is it? Going to be taking Joey Porter Jr. What was his 40 time? These Penn State fans are like, I thought Joey Porter was supposed to be able to run a 4.4. A sweet shirt. Not happening. Oh, I like the student section. Corum for Heisman. This show's going a little bit longer than I expected. I want to tell everybody a couple of things before we leave. I still have the top 10. There's another. We could just sit here all day watching Michigan games. Not bad. Hey, join up the Maize and Blue review today. You'll know about these transfer portals, about recruiting, about everything else that's going on with Michigan as it's happening. Basketball, who they're interested in the transfer portal. Trevor McHugh, Josh Henschke, the rest of our guys, Brock Heilig, they'll have you covered. And what's going on over there. I'm enjoying working with these guys. We're not done yet. We've still got, here's the list, if you're just joining us, of what PFF and what they thought about the top 10 running backs heading into the season. Corum 1, Edwards 2. I put Corum number 2 on this list in the 50 in focus top 10 running backs. And I do feel a little bit like that's a little home cooking, but I don't care. That's how much Edwards, and that's how good he is. Now, that the running back position, the future is bright as well. I say that because I think heading into April 1st, most people would have identified Dexter, high school's own Cole Cabana, the speedster, the speed burner at number 24. Where's number 24? That this guy with the speed that he has was going to be a real game changer. And I agreed with that. And I am a little biased because I live in Dexter. So, you got the hometown guy here. How can I not be? But then Ben Hall in the spring game looked like Herschel Walker. Now, I don't know. He looked good. Now, that is going overboard. But he had a really good game. And it made you think that, hey, Michigan is doing pretty good when it comes down to their running backs. Somebody earlier, I think you're right about that. I was just making it up. I was just making that stuff up on Joey Porter. I was hoping it was going to be him. So, yeah, you got Hall and Cabana. Could one of those guys, could both of them, be impact players? Getting a little bit of ahead of myself, but we do look to the future, and the future looks bright as well. Michigan has a commitment for 24 already from the Cincinnati, Ohio tailback, Jordan Marshall, a 4-star. If I'm just going on the look test, he looks like he's going to be great. His film looks pretty good too. And then, as I found out today, Mr. Tatum from Texas put up a tweet about his 7 finalists. He says 7 offers, but in another tweet, he had a picture that he has narrowed it down to 7. Michigan makes his final 7. Look at this 7. Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas A&M, USC, Texas, Oklahoma. Woo! He likes baseball. He's got official visits going to SC and Oklahoma in June. Taylor Tatum. Michigan would love to have him. I don't put, when it's, wait, Michigan's recruiting right now, I don't put anything past him. This guy would be, I'll say that'd be the best duo in the country. I don't know. That would be getting ahead of myself. But a Tatum Marshall duo, a Hall Cabana duo, the Corum Edwards duo. Michigan's got something going. It's looking really good. How about that? Let's take the last bit of feedback here. Shadyville. He's being impartial. He's predicting Texas. Well, he is from Texas. So, but you know what? Sometimes those Texas kids, the heat down there in Texas and everything in Texas is big. You want to get out of Texas. You can always go back to Texas. Let's see. What else? When we go to the feedback. Harvey saying he's heard something. He's heard Corum has added 10 more pounds of muscle. Do you think that will slow him down? I think that Blake Corum is a finely tuned machine. And I say that not just like that sounds like, superlatives, kind of thing. But what we do know about him is that, everybody that goes to Michigan, these guys are all like the, I don't know, top 5, top 2% in the country of players. I mean, they're getting great players all over the place. It has struck me when I see stories about features on Blake Corum about his work ethic when he was in high school. It's something around the way of him, I don't know, getting up at 4:00 in the morning, and his dad driving him to school, him working out before school, working out after school. They've had to dial him down so much. It's like Blake Corum, it seems like, wakes up and starts doing push-ups. Blake Corum eats breakfast, he's doing sit-ups. Then he's off to the gym. He loves the weight room. He loves running. He loves training. And you can say, well, this guy, you've seen the features. So if Corum wants to crank it up, I think that he's looking at what would be his perfect weight? And let me just look. I've got the spring roster. He is listed at 5'8", 210. So if he's up to 220, I think he's looking at himself like, I can be not only the best running back in the country, he's also looking at the next level and saying, look, somebody like Corum, I think he just got I think that's good. I think it's good. Let's see what we have. Some others. Marvin Harrison catches that, according to Mark. Dennis, start calling this the 73. 50th anniversary, lots of parallels, but let's finish it off. Now, Mark, did Michigan lose the national championship by 1 point in 1973? I think they did. I'm going to have to check that now. Let's check it. 1973. I think Michigan played Stanford. I don't think Bo coached that game. I think he had a heart attack. I think Jerry Hanlon, one of my favorite people in the world, coached that team. I could be wrong, though. Let's see. Oh, that was the 71 season. I like the 71 season. Undefeated all the way through, beat Ohio State, and then lost to Stanford by 1 point. 13-12. Only loss. All right, here's 73. Michigan won all of these games. Michigan was undefeated in 73. Oh, Mark, but in 73, they tied against Ohio State. I should have known that. A 10-10 tie. A very dubious 10-10 tie. Dennis Franklin breaks his arm in that game. And so the rest of the Big Ten votes on who goes to the Rose Bowl. And some clown up at Michigan State, and yeah, I know, you always hear the Spartans like, Michigan hasn't liked us from the 50s when they didn't want us in. Yeah, you're right. And you know the other reason they don't like you is because your athletic director, when Michigan outgained and had, I don't know what the first downs were. It was like 21-7 first down, something lopsided, yardage lopsided towards Michigan. When some guy named Bert and Ernie Smith voted against Michigan. And the story, which I don't know how accurate it is that Bo was so mad that he flipped over his desk and was walking down the middle of State Street talking to himself. I don't know. I don't know where he was going and why he was, he was mad. Maybe he was looking to turn over some cars. So in the 50th anniversary of Michigan getting screwed, there will be no tie against Ohio State. Here's the thing, Mark. Beat Ohio State for the 50th anniversary and another undefeated season. Now I see the tie-ins. Now I'm with it. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be here again tomorrow. We've got Jim Scarcelli coming your way on Wednesday. Join up with Amazing Blue Review. You like the Michigan talk? That's what we're doing all day and all night. Michigan. It's fun. We'll see you over there. Till tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye. So long.